the 30th Conference of Parties, that is COP30, of the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change will be held from November 10th to November 21st at Brazil in 2025.
COP30 will bring together almost 200 countries for marathon talks on how to tackle a crisis that touches all of them.
The COP30 Leaders Summit begins in Belém in Brazil today, featuring panels on climate change and efforts to strengthen the Paris Agreement.
The fight against climate change has come to the edge of the Amazon rainforest itself, but at a time when faith in the international climate process is faltering.
Now, this year also marks a decade when the most famous Paris Agreement, that is COP21, was also signed in Paris. And it set a goal, a global framework to limit the global warming well below 2 degrees Celsius. Now, this particular summit opens with a call for a new type of conference or a new type of conference on climate change. That is the COP of Truth. That is a conference of Party for Truth. And this moment, it marks a turning point on the global environmental politics. The reason is simple, that what we ought to achieve after 2015 in Paris Agreement, we are not able to achieve that. Though India has done a remarkable improvement, even Brazil has shown a remarkable improvement, but what about the entire globe? The entire world has seen a devastation in relation to climate change, devastation in relation to global warming, which is why a demand for the world to move beyond speeches and to move beyond symbolic commitments towards a decisive and collective action is what will be taking place in this particular summit, COP30 in Brazil. And this particular gathering, it embodies a very clear message, a very clear signal, a very clear sign that we need to protect the planet, and protecting the planet requires not just scientific understanding, but also a moral courage, but also political will and global solidarity. If these three things are not present, we won't be able to unleash policies which are able to protect the environment and global economy. Now, this particular COP summit at Brazil is a very historic one because this marks international community's return to Brazil after 1992 again. Because 1992, if you would remember, in Rio de Janeiro, there was Earth Summit which took place.
Secretary General Boutros Ghali, and my gratitude to Secretary General Maurice Strong for his tireless work in bringing this Earth Summit. This is truly an historic gathering.
And that is where the most famous United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change was signed. From that till now, we have really come a long way. We have initiated a lot of processes in order to combat climate change. We have initiated a lot of processes to combat deforestation and to go for afforestation, whether it be in Amazon basin, whether it be in the regions of Amazon or different other parts of the world. And over 3 decades later, after this 1992 summit, the world meets again in Brazil. And not in the capital, but in Amazon itself, which is why this particular summit will be held in the region of Belém in Brazil. Now, this symbolic setting represents a wide range of things alongside the lungs of the planet, where the meeting is being held, and also the front line of climate struggle, the place where climate struggle is real and where deforestation is reality and is happening. And the purpose of this renewed vigor and this renewed gathering is to ensure that the transformation occurs from ideals of 1992 to practical, real, measurable progress. Now, in this case, where COP30 is being held by Brazil, let us just talk briefly about Brazil's leadership in climate action and climate change. Now, first of all, Brazil has walked the talk, which means in just a span of 2 years, the deforestation in Amazon has just become half. And this particular thing shows a very concrete progress, and it shows that if regular measures, stringent measures are taken, then progress is possible. And also, if you focus on energy matrix of Brazil, you would also find that it is amongst the cleanest in the world. That is, around 88% of the electricity in Brazil is generated through renewable energy resources. For example, hydro energy, for example, wind energy, solar energy, and biofuels, which is a remarkable feat. 88% of the energy matrix is renewable energy. And also, one more initiative by Brazil is the Tropical Forest Forever Facility. That is TFFF, which is an innovative investment fund that rewards the preservation of forest rather than depending on charity or organization which has been set up by Brazil, which is again a remarkable thing. So there are 2 more things in relation to Brazil. One is this $1 billion commitment to climate finance, which is amazing. And second is Brazil's NDC's nationally determined contributions, which aims or pledges to cut emissions in Brazil by 59 to 67%, which again reiterates and shows its claim towards genuine climate responsibility. Now, while the COP30 will start from November 11, world leaders have already started gathering on the edge of the fast dwindling Amazon rainforest, and they have started talking about the leadership summits in advance. And the main focus in those talks is to balance the gap between developing countries and the rich countries that produce most of the world's harmful gas emissions. How do you bridge the gap between them? Now, leaders from the countries suffering one of the most catastrophic crises due to climate crisis and climate changes, from hurricanes to floods to droughts, have also urged United Nations Climate Conference in Brazil COP30 to take concrete actions. And while all these things are going on, Brazilian president has also given a statement and said that there is an urgent need to undo deforestation, to overcome the usage of fossil fuels, and also to mobilize the resources needed to combat this climate change. Also, if you remember clearly, last year, the rich countries of the world, they pledged around $300 billion for the protection and for helping the poorer nations who are suffering from climate change impacts. And this happened last year, but till this particular year and this moment, no money has yet been distributed, which is again a very big cause of concern. And moreover, developing countries, the poorer countries, and international groups, they maintain that the figure is woefully insufficient, that it is dramatically low, it is definitely insufficient to meet the needs of those countries who are in danger, and they are eyeing on a goal of $1.3 trillion in various forms of government and private assistance, logically, in order to ensure that climate change crisis is combated with and it is solved. And also the countries, the poorer nations, the developing nations who are facing the brunt of climate crisis the most, they're able to tackle it at least. Now, during this leaders summit on Friday, Haitian's diplomat Smith Augustin also said that there is a Hurricane Melissa, which devastated his country. He has also argued that while this hurricane devastated my country had no role, or the small islands, they are least responsible for climate change which is perpetrating in the world. Also, the Prime Minister of Barbados in the summit said that we must bow down our heads in shame, while suggesting that a loss and damage fund, which was established in the year 2022 at the Egypt's conference, has still a capital base of less than $800 million, which means this loss and damage fund, which has been established in the year 2022, 3 years back, is still having the capital base of less than $800 million, not even $1 billion. Saying this while Jamaica reels from damage of at least $7 billion, not to mention countries like Cuba, Haiti, or Barbados, or Bahamas. Also, the chairman of African Union Commission also highlighted an important thing. He said that the countries suffering the most harmful impact of this climate crisis are not asking for charity from the world. What they're asking is for climate justice. Again, which is a very important notion which we need to think on and which we need to act on. Also, while this was going on, several leaders criticized US President as well. While US President cites climate change as a hoax and has also refused to send an envoy to the talks while digging deeper into the fossil fuels in US. While so many leaders, especially of the developing nations who are facing the brunt of climate crisis, taking a stance on solving the crisis, a UNEP report comes into play. The United Nations Environment Programme, in its latest report, has highlighted that in the next 1 decade, we will soon cross the 1.5 degrees Celsius mark. That is, our average temperature is going to be more than 1.5 degrees Celsius than the historical number. The world will exceed this 1.5 degrees Celsius global warming mark, which was agreed upon in the Paris Agreement. So which means the Paris Agreement will fail in the next coming few years. And the internationally set target, 1 decade back, we won't be able to achieve the target, and again, global warming and climate crisis would be not under control, would be out of control. And also, a wonderful statement was given by UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, where he told the officials gathered in Brazil that either they can choose to lead or to be led to ruin. The UN has given a target that the global emissions must halve by 2030, they must achieve net zero by 2050, and then go to negative thereafter. Only then we will be able to save our Mother Earth, and only then our future generations will be able to enjoy the legacies of environment. Now, while so many developing countries are demanding for equity and climate finance, India's delegation won't be demanding anything new, which means the Indian delegation in the summit also would be targeting equity, would be targeting adoption, and would be targeting technological progress and technological access over any new emission cutting targets. Rather than coming up with new targets, new obligations, the focus should be on equity, focus should be on adoption, and focus should be on technological access to be provided to all in order to combat the crisis. Also, the officials from India, they have emphasized that the adoption goals must be in line with the national circumstances and must be supported by adequate finance and capacity building of that particular country. If that is not done, then what we are seeing is mere targeting, mere obligations, and no concrete actions whatsoever. And alongside this, India will also seek more flexibility in this global goal on adoption, and also ensure that the data sovereignty of developing countries is respected at all costs. Also, India has seen a remarkable progress in its effort towards combating climate change, whether it be in achieving its nationally determined contribution goals, or whether it be that India has reduced its emission intensity of the GDP by 36% between 2005 and 2025. That is, India has reduced its emission intensity with respect to GDP by 36% between 2005 to 2020. And alongside this, India has also achieved over 50% non-fossil power capacity, reaching its revised nationally determined contributions 5 years before time. Also, additional to this, India has been able to create a carbon sink of 2.29 billion tons of carbon dioxide equivalent between 2005 and 2021. And last but not the least, India has positioned itself as the third largest producer of renewable energy with a nearly 200 gigawatts of installed capacity. Now, citing several initiatives like International Solar Alliance, India can be said as a world leader, or India can be highlighted as a world leader in its leadership in promoting affordable renewable energy, and also to ensure South-to-South cooperation in combating climate change, and also to take concrete actions to solve this problem and to solve this menace, so that developing nations who are facing the brunt of this crisis the most are also not suffering. Now, while India stands to its Panch Amrit pledge, India has also time and again reiterated that India is ready to collaborate with all the nations to implement sustainable solutions in a way which are ambitious, which are inclusive, which are fair, and which are equitable as well. I hope you gained a new perspective from this session. All the very best and have a beautiful day. Thank you.